Is done. So the preaching is done. If you are not a disciple, then what do you think you are? If you are not a disciple, you are not a Christian. You cannot be a Christian if you are not a disciple. And even we shouldn't even call ourselves Christians. No, others should call us Christians. Our job is make disciples. So I can say, brother, hey, brother, my disciple, my co-worker, my friend. This is what we should do. It is rather the world who should look at us and say, they work like Christ, like Christos. So they are Christianity or Christians. So briefly, without predicting for the readings, we will briefly go through Acts 11, 19 to 26. And we will look at what they did to be called Christians. Jesus didn't say go and make Christians, he said go and make disciples. So what did they do to be called Christians? And who were called Christians? And then we just conclude straight away. Some benefits, little benefits, because all will come to the teaching, so we're not going far at all. If we are not disciples, then we are not followers of Christ. We cannot say we are following Christ and then say we are not disciples. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. We cannot say we are disciples if we are not carrying the cross, not monthly or yearly. If we are not carrying the cross daily, day after day, we are not disciples. And we can't call ourselves Christians. We cannot call ourselves disciples if we are not fulfilling the Great Commission. To be frank, for nearly about 10 years into my Christianity, it was like evangelism. There's something bigger than evangelism. Great Commission is not about evangelism. Brothers and sisters, it's about discipleship. If we are not disciples, then we are not obeying Christ. And if we are not obeying Christ, we do not love Jesus Christ. For those who love Christ, obey His commandment. So the Great Commission comes. Go and make disciples. That was the Great Commission. And even though Church of Christ, we know, speak as the Bible speaks, there's no Great Commission in the Bible, but that one there's no argument. Because by necessary inference, it is there. So quickly we go through Acts 11, 19 to 26, and gather something quickly. See how the church was established in Antioch, and how were the disciples called Christians. And then we make some applications, and then we bring our encouragement to a close. So in verse 19, now those who had been scattered by the persecution that broke out when Stephen was martyred, when he was killed for the sake of the word, they traveled as far as Phoenicia, Cyprus, and Antioch, spreading the word among the Jews. There was some discrimination there, isn't it? So they were only preaching to the Jews. But what come that they left Jerusalem? It was because of the persecution. Disciples were enjoying fellowship. We knew from Acts chapter 2, they were fellowshiping, beautiful. They were so different. You can see them, the Jews and the Gentiles, the proselyte Jews coming together, having one thing in common. People do not even say, this is mine. They share it, and the joy was overflowing. And that resounds to peace. Peace. You wake up in the morning, you may have nothing, but you know the brothers and sisters will make provision. And peace was there. These people were persecuted. And they left Jerusalem. And some went to Antioch. In verse 20, Somehow about from Cyprus and Cyrene, these were proselyte Jews. They saw Jews speaking to Jesus and said, no, we will speak to the Gentiles also. They were actually moved by the Spirit of God. God, Jesus, as we learned this morning, said, go to all nations. He didn't say go to the Jews, go to all nations. Whether you were a Jew, you were free, you were slave, you were Gentile, you were Greek, you need to be spoken to. So they spoke to these Greeks who were idolaters. They worshiped idols in Antioch. And because of the hand of God being with them, you remember the gracious hand of God was with these men. And so, great number. Great means great. Because even, they don't call 5,000 great, no. Jesus fed 5,000, they don't even call that great. So great number means great. So many people believed. And they were added to the church. News straight away was sent to Jerusalem that people in Antioch have believed. Those who went there were ordinary disciples because they have been taught how to disciple. They also were teaching others to become disciples. But they said, no, we need to send somebody there to organize them and to make sure. They didn't have the scriptures. The Torah was so kept in the synagogue, you can't get access to read. So they need someone to go there and mobilize them and keep them. Straight away, Barnabas came to mind. And they sent Barnabas. So Barnabas went there. And you know, Barnabas by his name. It's like somebody and his name. Barnabas means son of encouragement. So when he went, straight away he started encouraging them. And he said, come together, stay in the faith, do this. And so but Barnabas also remember, there is one man whom even the apostles were afraid to accept. Where is this man? He was not in Jerusalem. He was not in Phoenicia. He was not in Antioch. He was not in Cyprus. Where is this man? Then you remember that man comes from Tarsus, the city of no cities there, wherever. So Barnabas left Antioch. He traveled to Tarsus. And he was, the Bible says he was seeking, looking, finding. And when he found him, it means it was not easy. It was not like 22 Bansis Road, you go and knock and then grab him. No. He was actually asking, do you know this man? You know, he lived in Jerusalem. He studied under the foot of Gamaliel. And he found him. When he found him, he brought him back to Antioch. I don't know why Paul should run away. In fact, he ran away. When the persecution started, he ran away. He went to Antioch. Paul, you are the very person that God has said, you are going to suffer for my name. You are going to be a preacher to the Gentiles. I tell you, Paul left. He went to Tarsus. He went to his hometown. And he was not easily seen. But Barnabas, by his name, son of encouragement, the same person that even the apostles were not ready to accept, he brought him back to Antioch. And when they came, it was a different story altogether. For the space of 1 year, what happened was totally turning the whole Antioch city upside down. And the people in Antioch, if you read about the history, about Emperor Julian and his time, you can see that they used to give some names. Those who were following Herod, they were called Herodians. And they don't even call them in the Greek language. They use the Latin word to call them. So the Herodians were called Herodiani. It's like Italian. And those followers of Christos, they didn't say Jesus. Jesus was a common name. But one outstanding name was Christos, or Messiah. Messiah for the Hebrew, Christos for the Greeks. But they also didn't call them in the Greek, they called them in Latin, Christiani. And so they look at them and they give them the names. The name, if you read so many history, it looks like they were making mockery of them. Because Christ didn't say go and make Christians, but to make disciples. Oh, these are the followers of Christ. Some even make mockery of the disciples, they call them Nazarenes. And in the Jewish time, there was a problem that nothing could come from Nazareth. So if you are from Nazareth, where do you come from? Which is Nazareth? Nothing good comes from Nazareth. So when you are called Nazarenes, these people, they are Nazarenes. Nothing will come from you. Remember the brother of Andrew Horrible said, can anything come from Nazareth? Because it was a proverbial statement they know. And Nazareth, those from Nazareth, they know that even if you look into the books, prophets don't come from Nazareth. So they were relegated to the bottom. So Christians or followers of Christ being called Nazarenes is a ridiculous name. It means you are nothing. But within the space of a year, brothers and sisters, what happened resulted in that prophetic message in Isaiah, that out of the lips of the Gentiles, a new name will be given to the disciples. And so the disciples were called Christians or Christians like Christ. And Christ suffered, and these people suffered. Before even they went to Antioch, they were suffering persecution. Being killed and stoned. It is not being shot once and then probably within 10 seconds you die. They stone you, and it's horrible scene how they kill the Christians. Somewhere, actually, it's not good scene. If you read about some extra-biblical sources, it's very bad. But within a year, they turned the whole city upside down. And that made them to be called like Christ. Bearing the name Christian comes with suffering. Are we suffering? Bearing the name Christian, or to be a disciple, you have to suffer, you have to deny. You remember last 2 weeks or so, Brother Paul, Brother Patrick Boynes was here. And he mentioned about put up a poster and say, hey, come and suffer for Christ. Who is going to come? That is the message. Coming into Christianity is not hallelujah and joy. It is with work and suffering. The easiest we do is when we come to meet like this. This is the easiest. And even this one, some of us are suffering. Some of us are struggling to meet. The cheapest of the work is when we meet like this. Hello, how are you? We fellowship and we smile and we chat. This is the easiest. And if we struggle to meet, to fulfill the easiest portion, then where are we? So, brothers and sisters, for me, I am excited that we are learning this discipleship. It is actually training. It is not theory that we just we will work according to. Make a disciple, making something a business, or if you want to make a microphone, you actually do it. You make it. Make a disciple is intentionally to model the person, teach the person, go with the person. Jesus Christ for the first time when the 2 apostles, the disciples of John the Baptist, when they saw, Messiah, where do you live? Come, you come. Straight away he called them. Come. And they followed him, and he shared with them. And they saw his lifestyle, and they learned from him. Jesus, we know, anything he taught, he first did it. This is the master. And Jesus is God. You can't go beyond him. Beyond perfection. There is no point beyond perfection. Jesus was God. And so, brothers and sisters, before they were called Christians, this is what they did. They turned the city upside down. They were coming from persecution. But because they want to carry the cross of Christ, they carry the suffering into that city. And they deny themselves. You and I, we have something we don't want to deny. We cannot be disciples if we don't deny ourselves. We all have something we want to achieve in life. Probably have a nice family, have a nice house, have a nice cottage, have a nice car. We want something and we want to achieve it, and we don't want discipleship to come into conflict. We are not denying ourselves, are we? Some of us, we worship only when we have spare time. Oh, are you a disciple? And you even call yourself a Christian? No. If you are not a disciple, how dare you call yourself a Christian? You can't call yourself a Christian. Let others call us Christians. Brothers and sisters, it is work. It is work. But the work is not devoid of joy. The hardest work than even go to prison. Oh, out of the prison, in letter of what Brother Frank is teaching us. The church to the letter to the church at Ephesus. And that one is not even a very good one. The letter to the church at Philippi. That is like a love letter. But it was written from prison. So much joy. Within that small text, you can read joy. And you really don't understand how can somebody in prison mention so much joy. Remember Paul and Silas in prison singing hallelujah, praising God, and wonders happened. So, if you are not a disciple, you cannot call yourself a Christian. Fellowship and meetings, teachings and learning, we need to be together, brothers and sisters. We need to share the love. We need to know each other. And in 1 Peter 4:16, Peter said, if you suffer as a Christian, the name Christian comes with suffering, and you suffer when you are a disciple and you forgo the things that will please the flesh and follow the master. Jesus said, if you do not deny yourself, you cannot become a disciple. What have you denied? What have you left? If you do not carry your cross daily, you cannot be my disciple. Are we carrying the cross of Christ daily? How many of us do we see the burden of the church to be our burden? When we leave here, it's finished. Some of us don't even think about anything at all till the next Sunday, and even the next Sunday, somebody should give prompt testimony. Any burden on you? Are you a disciple? You're not. The marks are there. The marks of a discipleship, I believe that the Bible will take us through. And one point again, that these people were living a life which was different, and I could compare it to gospel study Esther chapter 3 verse 8 in our family. Yeah, you know it. You are smiling, yeah. And most times you went to America for information, we know you, yeah. So their lives was separate. Even though the Israelites were in captivity for 70 years, their customs were different. Their laws were different. Haman even reported to the king, these people do not obey your laws. They were different. Even when they were in captivity. Are we in captivity? So can't we live a different life? Can't we let this world see us as the followers of Messiah? That we are doing something different. And even around here, the last time I knocked on some doors, I said, do you know where the Church of Christ worship? He said, no. Less than 100 meters. So we are not turning the place around. And as I said, this is not going to be talking. It is walking. So I hope the teachers will help us so that we go through the test so that our lives will change. Bringing it to a conclusion, lots of things to say, but bringing it to a conclusion. Jesus suffered. Jesus laid the foundation. Jesus led the way. Jesus did it. He did it. He demonstrated it before teaching. And for the joy that was set before him, Jesus suffered. He died. Why? He endured because our God in heaven, Jehovah, has set a joy in front of Jesus. And looking at that joy, Jesus suffered and died. And when he came back to life, he was elevated from his godly position to another position, where he mentioned this morning that all power, authority has been given unto me. He has been elevated to a position where at the mention of his name, brothers and sisters, every knee is going to bow. And when you learn in that Hebrew word, proskino, bowing, it is worship. You know, everybody is going to worship you. It will come by default. Every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that he is Lord. Lord, that also has defined that authority. He set the rules, he enforces it. And this is what he's going to do. We know the way. We know the reason why we are on this earth. We know where we are coming from, and we know where we are going. Let us deny ourselves. Gradually. You can't, you see, there's a target I've found that I can't jump to somewhere I want to go straight away. I need to make gradual progression. Deny one thing, deny this thing. There's something that it is good for us we want to achieve in life. You know what? We will leave them behind. Gradually, be with the brethren, share, and move, and deny, carry the cross, and you will be there one day. And where you will be, you know what? Read through the scriptures, the joy, if you want to be joyful in this world, it is from the Father. Jesus doesn't want us to be very sad and moody. He wants us, even when we are imprisoned, like Paul and Silas, we will sing and we will change the atmosphere and we will bring life into those living dead so that they will also know Christ. If you have not given yourself to Christ, you cannot be a disciple. You need to come in first before you can also make disciples. As you mentioned about conversion, this world will definitely come to an end. Jesus is knocking at your door with the words that give yourself. Get up when the leader of the song is passionate, he sings beautifully. When he comes, say, I want to give myself to Christ. You don't give yourself to men, you give yourself to Yeshua. And he has the power to forgive all your sins and make you as whole. And then you follow his footsteps. You worship with your brethren. You partake of the Lord's Supper. You share the word and do all that you can. And at the end, the song that we said, when everything comes to an end, you give us that eternal peace. Amen.